The silence inside Esther's chest that day was louder than screaming. She did not fight, she did not argue, she did not throw insults or break anything inside the house she once called home. Instead, she stood still, staring at the two people who had rewritten her life without permission. Joy stood confidently beside her luggage, one hand resting on her stomach as if victory had finally crowned her patience. George sat comfortably, unmoved by the destruction he had caused, his pride stronger than remorse. In that moment, Esther realized she had never truly known either of them. Betrayal carries a strange kind of clarity. She suddenly remembered every small moment Joy had downgraded her gifts, every sarcastic smile hidden behind compliments, every strange silence whenever happiness entered the room. The signs had always been there, but love had blinded her. She understood now that jealousy had been living beside her long before George ever entered their lives. She packed quietly. Each dress folded felt like closing a chapter of innocence. Jewelry George had bought remained behind on the dresser because she no longer wanted anything tied to pain disguised as luxury. What she carried instead were documents, personal savings she had secretly built from allowances and gifts, and the strength she never knew she possessed. As she walked toward the door, Joy watched with amusement, convinced she had won something valuable. To Joy, Esther's silence looked like defeat. She believed wealth and marriage defined success, and since both now belonged to her, victory felt complete. Esther stepped outside without looking back. The air felt different. For the first time in months, she breathed without fear. She moved into a modest apartment in Iwute, far from the expensive neighborhood George occupied. The space was small, almost identical to the one-room life she once shared with Joy after university. But this time, the quiet belonged to her alone. No shouting, no tension, no pretending happiness existed where violence lived. Healing began slowly. At night, she sometimes woke shaking from memories she had buried too deeply. Bruises faded from her skin, but humiliation lingered longer. She attended work faithfully, saving money carefully, rediscovering parts of herself she had abandoned during marriage. Without realizing it, peace began rebuilding her confidence, piece by piece. Back in George's house, Joy's victory aged quickly. Reality does not maintain illusions for long. At first, she enjoyed the luxury. Expensive meals arrived daily. New clothes filled closets. Visitors congratulated her pregnancy, assuming she had entered a fortunate life. She believed she had escaped struggle forever. Then, George's temper revealed itself. He expected obedience. Meals prepared on time. Clothes arranged properly. Silence when he returned tired. Joy had never seen this version of him before because Esther had protected everyone from the truth. When she resisted instructions or refused to cook, arguments exploded instantly. George's anger was sharp and physical. The same hands that once bought gifts struck without hesitation. Shock replaced confidence. Joy fought back verbally, refusing submission. She reminded him she was not a servant. She believed pregnancy gave her protection. She was wrong. One evening, anger escalated beyond control. What began as shouting turned violent. Furniture shifted. Fear filled the room. The blow that landed against her body did more than hurt her pride. It changed her future forever. Pain followed immediately. Blood followed after. The hospital lights felt cold as doctors rushed around her. Hours passed between consciousness and darkness until finally the truth arrived gently but mercilessly. The pregnancy could not be saved. Internal damage forced emergency procedures to protect her life. Complications affected her womb severely. The doctor explained that conceiving again might never be possible. Joy stared at the ceiling long after the words settled. For the first time since childhood, life had chosen Esther's side. When she returned home weak and empty, George showed no remorse. Instead, he dismissed the loss casually, comparing her suffering to what Esther had endured silently during marriage. Hearing Esther's name connected to pain shocked Joy more than anything else. Pieces finally aligned: the gifts, the constant visits, the forced smiles. Esther had not been living a dream. She had been surviving a nightmare. Guilt arrived violently. Joy remembered every time she mocked a handbag, every time she envied a car, every moment she secretly wished Esther's happiness would collapse. She realized she had envied bruises disguised as blessings. The house no longer felt luxurious. It felt cursed. Days later, she searched desperately for Esther. Shame followed her like a shadow as she traveled to the small apartment in Iwuti. Seeing Esther again shocked her. Peace had softened Esther's face. There was tiredness, yes, but also dignity Joy had never noticed before. Forgiveness came easier than expected. Esther listened quietly. She understood pain better now. But forgiveness does not rebuild trust. Esther chose distance, explaining that betrayal changes the foundation of love permanently. She refused to reopen doors that once destroyed her safety. Unknown to Joy, Esther had already begun a new chapter with someone else. John entered her life gently. He was not loud or extravagant like George. He valued calm conversations and patient understanding. He admired Esther's strength rather than controlling it. Slowly, she allowed herself to believe kindness could exist without fear. Their relationship grew privately, protected from unnecessary attention. Joy never learned about John immediately. Esther preferred it that way. She had learned that some happiness must remain guarded. Returning home, Joy finally packed her belongings from George's house. The wealth she once chased now felt meaningless beside emotional exhaustion. George barely reacted when she left. Dismissing her departure with the same indifference, he showed everything he believed replaceable. She returned to her former one-room apartment where her old roommate still lived. Reality welcomed her without sympathy. The roommate reminded her gently but firmly that envy blinds people to truth. Joy realized she had not stolen happiness. She had stolen suffering. Meanwhile, George attempted reconciliation with Esther after discovering she had rebuilt her life without him. Pride finally bent when loneliness replaced control. But Esther refused completely. She no longer feared losing luxury because she had discovered something greater: peace. Time moved forward. Joy lived quietly, carrying consequences that could never be reversed. Motherhood, once her weapon against Esther, became the dream she could never touch again. Each passing child reminded her of choices made during moments of jealousy. Esther eventually married John. The ceremony was small, intentional, surrounded by people who valued sincerity over appearance. There were no grand displays, only laughter free from fear. She learned that love does not need to shout to be real. Some betrayals destroy friendships forever. Some lessons arrive too late. Joy learned that envy is a thief that first steals gratitude before stealing destiny itself. By the time she understood, The sister she once had was gone, replaced by distance. She could never cross again. And somewhere in another part of town, Esther finally slept peacefully, no longer carrying the weight of pretending happiness for anyone. Because sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what truly matters. And what truly mattered was never the car, never the bags, never the luxury house, never the public display of affection, never the competition, never the comparison. What truly mattered was peace. What truly mattered was loyalty. What truly mattered was truth. Joy learned the hardest way that envy does not improve your life. It only blinds you from appreciating what you already have. The moment she began comparing her journey to Esther's journey, she stopped seeing her own path clearly. She began measuring her worth by another woman's blessings. And comparison slowly turned admiration into bitterness. Jealousy is dangerous because it rarely announces itself. It hides inside small thoughts like, why her? It grows inside silent resentment. It feeds on insecurity. And if it is not controlled, it turns friends into enemies and love into competition. Joy never started as a wicked person. She started as a struggling woman who felt left behind. But instead of working on her own growth, instead of trusting her own timing, she chose the shortcut of destruction. And shortcuts always come with hidden prices. Another lesson hidden in this story is that what looks beautiful from the outside may be bleeding on the inside. Joy envied a marriage that was full of violence. She envied gifts that were apology payments for abuse. She envied a car that was bought with tears. She envied luxury that was built on fear. Not everything you see on social media is happiness. Not every smiling wife is safe. Not every expensive gift is love. Sometimes what people show you is only the edited version of their suffering. Esther made a mistake too. Silence cost her deeply. She protected the image of a man who was destroying her. She hid her pain out of shame. She allowed people to think she was living a dream while she was surviving trauma. And that silence almost trapped her forever. Another lesson is this: never stay where your dignity is under attack. Money cannot replace respect. Gifts cannot replace safety. Marriage is not endurance of abuse. Love is not fear. And anyone who hurts you and then buys you something expensive is not romantic. That is manipulation dressed as generosity. We also see how culture sometimes enables pain. Esther's aunt encouraged endurance instead of protection. Many people normalize suffering in the name of tradition, but suffering is not proof of loyalty. And patience is not the same thing as self-destruction. Then there is the lesson about betrayal. The deepest wound in Esther's life was not George's infidelity, it was Joy's betrayal. Because enemies do not shock us, but friends do. The people we trust with our secrets are the ones capable of breaking us completely. That is why loyalty is more valuable than beauty, money, or charm. Joy also learned something permanent. When she finally entered the marriage she envied, she discovered that stealing someone's position does not change the character of the person you stole. If a man is violent, he will remain violent. If a man is unfaithful, he will remain unfaithful. You cannot build happiness on another woman's tears and expect peace to live there. She did not just lose a pregnancy. She lost her ability to become a mother. And that consequence was not just physical. It was emotional. It was psychological. It was lifelong. Envy cost her more than unemployment ever did. Another powerful lesson is about timing. Everyone's journey is different. Esther's blessings came earlier. Joy's struggles lasted longer. But instead of trusting her own timing, Joy tried to force destiny. And when you force what is not meant for you, you may receive it temporarily, but it will not stay peacefully. Esther, on the other hand, discovered that leaving is sometimes the greatest form of strength. Walking away from betrayal, walking away from violence, walking away from disrespect. She did not fight for a man who did not value her. She did not compete for a position that degraded her. She chose herself. And when she chose herself, life aligned differently. Not because life is always fair, but because self-respect attracts healthier environments. Forgiveness is another deep lesson here. Esther forgave Joy, but she did not restore access. Many people think forgiveness means reconnection. It does not. You can release bitterness without reopening the door. Boundaries are not wickedness. Boundaries are protection. Joy's regret came late, but it came with clarity. She realized she was not fighting Esther. She was fighting her own insecurity. And insecurity, when untreated, becomes self-sabotage. This story teaches us that the greatest competition you will ever face is the one inside your own mind. If you conquer insecurity, no one can threaten your peace. If you allow insecurity to control you, even your closest friend can become your target. It also reminds us that wealth without character is dangerous. George had money. He had status. He had charm. But he lacked discipline and empathy. And those two missing qualities destroyed everyone around him. At the end of everything, Esther did not win because she married again. She won because she healed. She won because she refused to let bitterness turn her into what joy became. She won because she chose peace over pride. And Joy's story is not just about punishment. It is about consequence. Every decision carries a seed. Some grow into blessings. Some grow into regret. So the real question is this: when envy knocks on your heart, what will you choose? Will you celebrate your friend and trust your timing? Or will you compare until you destroy what once made you happy? Life does not need competition between friends. It needs collaboration. It needs support. It needs genuine celebration. Because when you clap for someone sincerely, you make space for your own blessings to grow. If you learned something from this story, if you saw yourself in any character, if this story made you reflect, then take a moment and think about your relationships. Think about your friendships. Think about the silent emotions you may be carrying. And now, before we end this story, I want you to do something. If this story touched you in any way, like this video, when you help this story reach someone who may need this lesson. Share this video with someone who is struggling with jealousy, someone who is enduring a toxic relationship silently, or someone who needs the reminder that peace is more important than pride. Subscribe to this channel if you want more powerful, emotional stories like this. Stories that reflect real life. Stories that teach deep lessons. Stories that make you think. And most importantly, go to the comment section right now and tell me, who was more wrong in this story? Joy? George? Or was it silence that caused the biggest damage? I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced envy in friendship? Have you ever ignored red flags in love? What did you learn from it? Let's talk in the comments. Because sometimes the greatest healing begins when we share our truth. And remember this: protect your peace, protect your dignity, and never trade your self-worth for temporary satisfaction. I'll see you in the next story.